what's it like being the youngest woman ever elected to Congress?
It's very exciting. It's a humbling feeling, and I'm just excited to add an additional crack to the glass ceiling.
Elise Stefanik made her crack in the glass ceiling in a district known as the North Country in New York State. She launched her campaign at age 29 and won it as a 30-year-old.
The faces have indeed changed inside the Beltway, decidedly more female in both houses. And as the new Congress settles and gets ready to get down to business, there are those wondering what this new crop of female lawmakers will mean to America, and if we can finally bury all this talk of a so-called war on women. Welcome to MidPoint, Executive Director of the Independent Women's Forum, Sabrina Schaeffer. Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Sabrina, I just mentioned that phrase, and before we start talking about some of the new members of the 114th Congress, I need to ask, when you hear that phrase, war on women, does that still chafe at you and kind of just get the dander up just a little bit more?
Well, look, I am so glad that the American people voted that down. I mean, was definitive. Did the gender gap close altogether? No, but the Americans said enough is enough. We are tired of being pitted against one another. People wanted, substantive policy discussions, and I think this was the first step towards saying that we're done with this war on women rhetoric.
Why did it take us so long to get past that rhetoric? Because it seems as if we have been on this equality march for quite some time, and women do a better job than men in a whole lot of businesses. So what is it that keeps this driving?
Well, look, a big part of it is that we weren't effectively communicating with women consistently on the right. I mean, look, the left has spent more than a decade investing millions of dollars in sophisticated social science research. They have figured out the very best ways of addressing women of all different ages, and they have really sort of cornered this market, so to speak. I think that conservatives and Republicans, by extension, have done a good job this time, but this is a fragile victory. There is still a lot of work to be done if we want to sustain this.
Is it not fair to say, and again, leaning on what you just said here, that to some members of the conservative side, the Republicans, that in the last 10, 15 years, there has still been a good old boy arrogance when it comes to women, let's be honest.
Right. Well, politics, look, it's still overrepresented by men on both sides of the aisle. But I think I actually differ from what Elise Stefanik said. I think it's more than a crack in the glass ceiling. I think the glass ceiling has been shattered. There's a whole slew of wonderful fiscally conservative women who come from all sorts of different backgrounds and diversity, who have different professional and domestic experience. I think we have a wonderful group of women out there who can serve as ambassadors for limited government and liberty to an otherwise uninformed public on a lot of these issues. So I think that we have a lot of wonderful people. It's going to take time for things to change further, but we've taken a big step forward.
But if indeed, again, I want to take your own phrase where you said that this shatters the glass ceiling, then why, if then it's been shattered so well, are you still talking about a tentative or a very cautious victory?
Well, I think that we have to there's a difference between, are we looking for parity in Congress? Are we looking for equality? I think that we have equality of opportunity to run for office. I think that we found in study after study that people will vote for women as much as they will vote for men. So I think that we have to sort of be careful that we don't look for 50-50 as a goalpost. And too often the women's groups on the left keep changing the goalpost. No longer is it sufficient that we have a lot of great women in office. We simply don't have enough in their view. So I'm much more concerned that the women voters are choosing limited government and liberty, and that they're looking for lawmakers who are going to represent them on those policies when it comes to energy and healthcare and education and growing this economy. That's what I think is where we should be focusing our attention, and we still have a lot of work to do.
1 minute before we take a break here, but let me ask, when you talk about the left, in your opinion, how much damage has the left done, and how long is it going to take to repair the damage the left has done when it comes down to seeking these moving goalposts?
Well, they've done a lot of damage, and the reality is when it comes to talking to women voters, I think that we were very lucky in November, and that a lot more work was done to try to address women voters. But like I said, this is a fragile victory. If we stop now and think that our work is over, then we're going to see this reverse itself. But if this is going to be a sustained victory, if we're going to see this for lasting change, where women begin to value individual choices and they see government as intruding on the economy rather than helping the economy, then we have to continue figuring out, how do you talk to women, what messages work, what tactics work in the field. That's a lot of money, that's a lot of research, that's a lot of time that we still need to invest.
All right, speaking of time, let's go ahead. We'll get down to what the Congress is going to have planned here in this session. Please stand by just a couple of minutes. We'll break and then we're back. More talk about the new Congress, the all-important and very critical agenda, and perhaps some things that ladies and gentlemen can agree upon upon need to be shuttled to the back and face more important matters. Because let's face it, now that the midterms are over, now that a new year has begun, now that our new Congress is in session, there are certain things maybe that need to be changed, a shifting, if you will, to actually get some substantive issues taken care of. That and so much more when we continue right here, where we question everything. This is MidPoint.